Welcome to Alpha Marketing, your go-to resource for unlocking the full potential of your small to medium-sized business. Hosted by Aaron Shishilla, CEO of Wolfpack Advising. Now, let's learn how to dominate your market.
Hello and welcome back to the Marketing Alpha podcast. Today I want to talk about something that I think is quite interesting, which is about digital content consciousness. So the entire purpose is we're going to be talking about the practical strategies for creating content that truly resonates with people online. A lot of times we just push content to push content, or we don't know kind of what to write about, what to talk about, what to podcast about, or what to blog about. So in today's podcast, it's easy to get lost in the sea of all this different content. But when we approach content creation and consumption with a bit more intention, we can actually resonate a lot more with our audience and then essentially have better content and more conversions. So we'll break down what digital content consciousness means, why it's crucial for effective marketing, and then essentially how it leads to more meaningful audience connections at the end. So what is digital content consciousness? Essentially, it's about being aware of how content impacts our thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. This awareness helps cut through the digital noise, allowing us to create and consume with purpose. There's a ton of content posted every day online. There's millions of blog posts out there that are posted every single day. And so what we're aiming to do here is produce content that actually resonates with the audience, that they can understand, that is important to them, and that makes them create some type of action from it, right? Makes them perform something after the fact. So some key aspects here is, one, there needs to be some type of emotional impact. So how does the content create that emotional impact to the audience member? Intention. So how is it purposeful in creating both the content and consuming it? So when you create the content, is there intention behind that? And when they consume it, is there intention behind the consumption of it? Or is there just like obviously no intention, right? There needs to be a reason for them to read it. And then ethics. Take responsibility for the information we put out there. So we want to make sure when we write a blog post about taking care of your home or taking care of some pest control or anything like that, that it's actually sourced responsibly and has the correct information. So now let's talk about why brands need to prioritize the consciousness of their digital content. It's a huge responsibility to produce the type of content. You know, we want authenticity, we want transparency, we want to have the right values when we produce content. It's not about just pushing information out there. So as marketers or as business people, we need to have content that aligns with these particular values. You can't just blog about anything and think that it's going to perform. We need to have real intention behind it. We need to be authentic, we need to be transparent, and show our values through our actual content that we're writing. So build trust with real stories and values. Be transparent and open about our intentions, our sources. Make sure you provide either case studies or proof of content, proof of work, and focus on creating content that actually educates, informs, or entertains. Really think about the value of the content and take your time to actually put that value in the content itself. Don't just produce the content to produce the content. If you're producing the content just to produce it, really nobody's going to find the true intention behind consuming it, reading it, listening to it, understanding it, and there's no real intention for them to make some type of action after the fact. So let's talk about some strategies you can implement when you're looking at producing any type of content, whether it's a podcast or a blog or social media. First is obviously you need to understand your audience. So understand what they need and their pain points. Once you understand that, you can really start thinking about tons of different types of content to produce. It's essential because once you understand that pain point, you can draw on that within your content and resonate with them on a more deeper level. It's kind of like when you're thinking about a sales process or like a consultation, or like you're trying to sell somebody like a car. If you understand their pain points and their needs, you can play on those when you're actually doing the sale. Quality over quantity is the second thing. And it's really common to get out this urge to produce tons of content and just, throw stuff. What we found is at the start, it's really good to do that because there is a learning curve to producing content, right? As you're going to do this initially, you're probably, your first pieces of content are going to suck, and that's okay. Your first couple podcasts are going to suck, and that's okay. But afterwards, when you focus on the quality content, your consumers and audience will learn to understand that, hey, I can come back and read anything and be entertained, be informed, and really trust the content that they're individually producing, rather than just being tons of content that I'm so overwhelmed, but also not a lot of it is good. If it's not good, people aren't going to want to come back. And if there's too much for them that isn't good, they're definitely not going to want to come back. And then finally is feedback loops. So encourage feedback, get feedback from your audience, whether it's through surveys or social media or audience insights, to fine tune your content strategies. You can understand what's working well, what blogs are doing well, what podcasts are doing well, what is your audience saying about you online, all those different things to basically improve upon your content. But that's going to take some time to build up that audience, to build that different feedback when you're getting started. So here are some additional strategies to enhance your effectiveness as well. So those are the important pieces when you're first creating your content. But now let's talk about some ways you can enhance your digital content. First is the content curation. Is share third-party content that complements your brand's message. Curation shows that you're aware of the bigger picture and not just pushing your own agenda. So definitely goes along with when you're thinking about writing content. You don't always have to have it from your own perspective, but taking the perspectives of others to share that and produce that with your audience as well. You could also implement stories, which is our second thing. People remember stories. They don't remember just stats or information. So when you're going to talk about something, whether it's in a podcast or you're going to write a blog post or make a YouTube video, whatever it is, when you tell a story that's memorable and relatable, people are more likely to remember that particular information. And then finally, user-generated content is where users or your audience members can actually generate the content for you, and then you could share that. A lot of people use this within testimonials and use it in advertising. So if you wanted to share it in that particular format, you can add those pieces to let customers share their experiences. It not only strengthens their engagement with you, but also can help resonate with the audience itself and share the authenticity of your brand. So those are some strategies to actually write the content, enhance your content, make it a little bit better. Now let's talk about some key metrics to track to measure the effectiveness of how well you're doing. First off, you can look at engagement rates. You could look at likes, shares, comments to reveal how the content resonates with people. That's common if you're going to post on social media. You could also look at just general feedback from like comments as well, or what people are talking about. You can do some type of sentiment analysis, which is basically like monitoring the tone of, the thumbs up and thumbs down on YouTube is one of those ways you could do a sentiment analysis, or like ratings on Spotify is another example. Or if you have like little functions on your blog, which a lot of blogs do, to like heart something or like something, that's another form of sentiment analysis. And then you could use, of course, the common tools for monitoring. So Google Analytics is one of the most common things. See how many people are actually spending the time to read that page. How many people are scrolling down? How many people are bouncing? Meaning if they go to the page, they don't do any particular action, and then they just leave. That's a bounce. Some of that could be a little bit more analytical to look at that information, understand how Google Analytics works. But that's how you can get involved with that and just start picking apart what particular nuances do I want to look at within Google Analytics and understand to see how effective my content is. The most simple one, of course, though, is, how many people read this one? How many people shared it? How many people listened to this particular one? That's how you know it's doing well, is when people are sharing it and more people are listening to it, obviously. Now, before we segue into some other future things to think about, some common challenges that I see is there's people talk about content saturation, that everybody's trying to get noticed. Really, it just goes back to stand out, you need to deliver unique quality content that cuts through the noise. You got to really think about your individual audience, their pain points, and what's going on right now, and separate and diversify yourself through the other people. Really common thing to think about here is like if you're delivering a product to the market, how is your product different? Producing content is you're producing a product. So you really need to showcase how your information is going to be different from all the rest. With Marketing Alpha Podcast, the real simple answer is here that there's so many podcasts out there, and they all talk for an hour, hour and a half, and produce very little content or value. Where ours, much shorter, and the value is all there. It's very structured, and it's within that time frame. So that way you're walking away with tons of pieces of nuggets of information within a short time period. So how is your content different? Navigating misinformation. Misinformation is a real issue, so make sure you're double checking your facts and you're remaining credible with your information. If you hire some type of marketing agency, produce some type of content, make sure they're a reputable agency, or check with them and review their particular content before they actually go and publish it to make sure that it's good. And then make sure you adapt to change. So consumers' preferences are always shifting. So staying agile is the only way to keep us keep up and keep relevant. So make sure you're adapting to any change, whether it's, now the trend's not podcasts anymore. Now the trend is this, and you're shifting over to whatever the new forms of content are, especially on TikTok right now. But that could definitely change here pretty soon because TikTok could be banned by next year. All right, let's end on two other things. We'll talk about the future of content. We'll give it a quick example, and then we'll wrap up. So the future of content, one, emerging trends. We're seeing video more and more important, obviously, especially the short form video content. Keep it very short. Keep it very interactive or entertaining. Those types of content, it's all about getting really good engagement and shares. So the algorithms now are just that short form content is all about engagement, all about shares. So make sure you're focusing on that. The other thing to consider is using AI, and everybody talks about AI. I think it's oftentimes over talked about. The simple thing is you need to have AI in some way in your pipeline, and the easiest way to use it is for your initial drafts. We use artificial intelligence at Wolfpack Advising all the time for initial drafts for everything. We create the initial draft, and then our team goes in and cleans everything up. So make sure you're using artificial intelligence in some way. You get a ChatGPT premium subscription or whatever it is. Your software itself that you're using has some type of AI integration. You need to have that in order to remain productive in today's environment. So let's give an example with Dawn Dish Soap's Conscious campaign. So Dawn Saves Wildlife campaign, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the oil spill, is a great example. By aligning the audience values of sustainability, and they created a memorable, impactful campaign that builds loyalty. So the key takeaway here is just being authentic and really showing the stories. So their whole campaign was just about being authentic and talking about a real story that was a current event and going on. Same thing applies to any type of messaging or content you're producing as well. It's just think about being really authentic. Think about social media, those people that you don't really like seeing on social media, for example. Everybody has those, this person's posting again, right? Think about, are they posting authentically, and are you posting authentically? I found when I'm posting myself authentically, it's getting a lot more engagement than if I'm posting something that's pretty fake. That's not me, because it's not me. People don't interact with that. People don't engage with that. People don't relate with that. But when I'm being my authentic self and what my true personality is, people tend to like my personality. Some people don't, I guess, but that's another story. So closing thoughts here. Digital content consciousness. It's a big word. It's not just a trend, though. It's not just some big word. It's the future of effective marketing. It's already here. The content itself needs to be authentic, needs to be trustworthy, needs to be all these things. It needs to be intentional. The more intentional and the more authentic we are with our content, the stronger the connections we build and the more effective the content is. So my ending call to action to you is, how can you improve your own content strategy knowing this now? Start by reviewing what you're currently producing and maybe tone it back a little bit. Think about the quality first, and think about the authenticity and intention first. And then produce that content and see how effective it turns out for you. Anyway, if you guys have questions, I'm always here. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Alpha Marketing. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other business owners and marketers. Your support enables us to continue bringing you actionable advice and the tools you need to thrive. Join us next time for more insights with Aaron Shishilla, and keep striving to be the alpha in your market.